Arizona, noon on the 7th of June, then they highballed over the pass. Bulldog Mac with a cannon back and a Jaguar hauling ass. He's 10 on the floor, stroking bores, seat cover starting to gain. Now, Beaver, you a trucking with a rubber duck, and I'm about to pull a plug on your drain.
Are you ready?
I'm ready, Bill.
Here
I'm
we
ready
go.
to talk about a film directed by none other than James Coburn.
Well, let's not go that far.
Okay.
Folks, welcome to Cosmic Motion, an audio program where we discuss motion pictures, good, bad, and ugly, and always interesting throughout the cinematic cosmos. We will be talking about all kinds of elements of this film, and we'll likely spoil some aspects. Please watch the film first, and then come back and join our discussion.
Do it up.
Tell me who you are.
I'm Colin.
I'm Bill.
Yay.
We make stuff. Colin is a editor in the episodic space.
True.
I am an editor in the feature and sometimes episodic space, and sometimes I write, direct, and edit smaller short form subjects. Colin, what are we gonna talk about today?
We're going to talk about none other than Convoy.
Yeehaw!
Hey, breaker.
Breaker.
Bill,
Yes.
if I told you that there was a CB craze in America, would you know what the hell I was talking about?
I would. I've heard about it.
Okay. Can you tell me anything about it?
Not really. I don't think it lasted very long. But there are definitely movies that attest to this craze.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but I thought that Convoy was the one that, kind of kicked it off. But I don't think that's true. This is the last on the line of, what would you call these? Trucker freedom movies?
I think I wouldn't just say trucker. I would say like open road. Yeah, like traveling movies that have the law pursuing some kind of outlaw in their vehicle, whether it's a motorcycle,
Sure.
a car, or a truck. In
Okay.
this case, obviously a truck.
Yeah, you're right. But in a way, this doesn't feel like it fits in with like an Easy Riders.
Maybe not, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it fits Easy Rider, but it does feel like it maybe fits Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah.
Or that sort of vibe.
Yeah.
Which and Smokey came out, I think, 1977.
Yes.
And this came out 1978. So there's something going on in the ether in America, some zeitgeist.
Well, I believe I have the answer on that, but we can get there.
We can get there now if you want.
Okay. Well, I was stunned to find out that there was such a thing as a CB craze in this country.
Yeah.
And I, tried to kind of get my head around what that meant. And listen, I took ham radio in 8th grade. Yeah, that was super popular. And I get it. It's kind of a fun novelty.
You went to a school where you could take ham radio? That's pretty awesome.
Well, it was like the oldest teacher at the school teaching it, of course.
That's amazing.
Probably still reeling from the bombs that they dropped on him in, World War II or whatever. Anyway, during the 70s, most of us know there was an oil crisis.
Yes.
And because of said crisis, the Pokey, the Bears,
Yeah.
the Smoky, as it were,
Yeah.
were really, really hyper aggressive about enforcing the 55 mile per hour speed limit. Because of that, truckers were soups pissed. And they established this culture of essentially screening for the Smokies. And that's where the whole CB craze kind of took off. Also, at the time, they dropped like the license fee for having CB radio from like $40 to like $4 or something. So normal folks could buy a CB radio and then basically talk to their neighbors for free.
Yeah.
Ideally with a edgelord kind of handle, like a, Phantom Duck or whatever it is,
Right. Rubber Duck.
Well, Rubber Duck in this case.
Yeah.
Like Phantom Beaver or whatever.
Sure. Phantom Beaver is a good one.
Yeah. Raging Marmot.
I feel like Phantom Beaver and Raging Marmot are a couple.
My
Yeah.
hipster band.
So I had no idea that was related to the whole gasoline shortage. That makes a lot of sense. And I didn't know that the speed limits went down because of it. So,
And Convoy makes a lot more sense with some of that background. Although, does it?
well, yes and no. It does make sense when you look at the speedometer in the movie and it says 70 and they're getting pulled over and you're like, really?
Sure.
Is that what's going on?
Sure.
Like, and these cops are super interested in enforcing this lower speed limit. So
Right.
that was interesting to watch.
Okay.
We all know that Americans don't want their freedoms taken away. They don't want to be impinged upon. They don't want to feel like any aspect of what they've grown up with or think they've grown up with is being limited.
Right.
And I can see where, you start lowering the speed limit, and people are going to be unhappy. If you start, telling them to wear masks or any kind of thing, then, you get some reactions.
You're saying I can't smoke? I'm telling you that cigarettes are chock full of vitamins.
They are. Last I checked.
Yeah.
So Convoy, first of all, apparently Burt Reynolds and Hal Needham were offered Convoy. They turned it down. They went and did Smokey instead. Where did Convoy come from? Where does this movie come from?
It comes from a song, Bill.
Yeah.
It comes from a song that I frankly cannot stand.
I mean,
this aggression will not stand, man.
This aggression will not stand, man. I like it more than you do, but I think the chorus is painful, as we had discussed off mic, where they're singing in the background. Whatever's happening there, what did you liken it to?
What did I liken it to?
I think you said it sounds like a bunch of Muppets.
Yeah, it sounds like, what's the name of the band in the Muppets with the, like...
Isn't it like Doc Somebody's something band? It's a very 60s, 70s kind of vibe.
Hang on, we can't not get this right.
All right. Well, while he's doing that, I'm going to say it's...
Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem.
Bam. There you go.
This definitely feels like a Dr. Teeth song. But then it's also got some like disco in it, and then it's got like a weird...
there's disco in it? I don't think I heard that part.
There's kind of like some chugga, it's supposed to...
don't take away my disco.
It's supposed to evoke like a truck,
Don't take away my freedoms, Colin.
I'm not taking anything
Nothing
away.
wrong with disco. I can like punk and disco.
Well, apparently not if you lived through the 70s. At some point, they made a hard stance on that.
All right, so the song's called Convoy. It's written by Chip Davis and Bill Fries, sung by C.W. McCall, a.k.a. Bill Fries or Fries. Song went to #1 in the U.S. on country and pop charts.
Get the ever-loving F out of here.
#1.
Not okay.
How did that happen? I mean, I think it's a perfectly fine song, except for the background singers and the chorus.
It's perfectly cromulent. It's just, I don't know why. It really must have to coincide with this CB craze. I just think there's this perfect alignment of events.
Yeah.
But I do want to do a little experiment here, because I don't like this song, but I don't want to deny it. And that is, as you alluded to, what led us to Convoy. Sam Peckinpah wanted a hit. And I mean, that's literally like his impetus for wanting to do the movie. He just wanted a hit.
He did want to. He had a hard time with his 3 previous films, including my favorite, the Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia.
Yeah, but that's why he did it. And essentially, I'm assuming, and maybe you have actually more background on this, but it seems like he just plucked this song out of the ether, knowing that it was popular on the charts, and said, well,
I think because it was offered to Burt Reynolds and Hal Needham earlier. I'm guessing that it was a studio property, and it was some studio exec's idea. Like, why don't we make this into a film? Could make a good profit.
Because it is a story song. Before we go too far down that rabbit hole, I do want to run a little experiment. So, I just want to take us through some of the lyrics of "Old Convoy."
This doesn't sound like...
No, this is exactly Arizona noon. On the 7th of June, when they highballed over the pass, Bulldog Mac with a can on back and a Jaguar hauling ass. He's 10 on the floor, stroke and bore. Seat covers startin' to gain. Now, Beaver, you a truckin' with the rubber duck, and I'm about to pull the plug on your drain. Thank you.
Well, okay. So he's not Robert Frost. But hey, listen, first of all, fantastic rendition of the song. Thank you.
There'll be more later.
Okay.
In fact, we actually have to, what am I doing? We have to at least get one of the choruses in there. Because we got a little old convoy rocking through the night. Yeah, we got a little old convoy. Ain't she a beautiful sight? Come on and join our convoy. Ain't nothing gonna get in our way. We gonna roll this truckin' convoy across the USA. Convoy. Thank you.
All right. Well, we had just been in Vietnam. People were looking for something to to just drop out to have some mindless fun. And I guess it involved CBs and trucks and other vehicles.
Sure.
Rolling Stone put the song in the 100 greatest country songs of all time at number 98.
Jesus.
And I like country, and I'm not an aficionado by any stretch, but I mean, I can't imagine that there aren't 100 more songs, that probably 300 songs that are better than this one.
Like Patsy Cline alone probably has like 50 better.
Exactly. I was thinking about I think including all of, exactly. Patsy Cline and Dolly Parton,
even
Willie
like
Nelson.
The ones that were all like cranked up on like PCP, like Waylon Jennings and stuff. Like they probably all have like 50 better.
I mean, it's unbelievable that this is not, and I think just because it was a moment in Americana, maybe that's why it's scoring so high.
Okay.
The screenplay was written by B like Bear, W.L. Norton, aka Bill Norton. And I think that Peckinpah probably had something to do with some of the lines in this movie, being a writer himself, obviously early in his career, and then later as he was a director. Yeah, it's kind of interesting that this song that is not the greatest sprung this movie. The movie wound up being the biggest hit in Peckinpah's career.
Yeah,
he did what he wanted to do.
46 mil, something like that.
Problem was he was so behind schedule, over budget, and on drugs that he didn't get hired again for like 5 years after this.
Yes, he was profoundly hyped up on what the children describe as goofballs at the time.
What are goofballs? I don't know.
No, it's just an expression, hyped up on goofballs.
Okay.
But he was in the bag.
Yeah.
And it wasn't good.
Yeah, no, it wasn't good.
And my earlier joke was, about James Coburn. Well, he's largely credited with filming large swaths of this film.
I didn't know. I knew that so Peckinpah gave him a chance to do second unit, and he shot pieces of it, but apparently, according to Colin, he shot quite a bit of it.
It just sounds like there were large stretches where, Peckinpah was essentially just relegated to his trailer. At one point, I think I read that there was like a stretch of like 11 days where he just couldn't pop his head out of this trailer, So it was a rough time for old Sam.
He was having a rough time at that time in his life.
It never really got better for him, sadly.
The original director's cut that came out for Convoy was 3.5 hours long.
I saw that. Which explains some things, because there's some holes in this film.
You think?
Yeah.
I don't know. It has a charm to me. It does feel like a coked up 80s film to some degree, to where it's just like, let's go, everybody's okay. And like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, well, why would they just be able to stop at one point completely after they're being chased across state lines or whatever by cops, and I don't know how many. And then
state lines are magic, Bill.
They're state line, but then they keep being chased, and then they stop. And they have a party, and it's like a total Peckinpah style party where there's like Mexican guitar music being played, and you're just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And then and no cop arrests them. They're just like walking around with them. I don't understand what happened there. But yeah, apparently they made some kind of like timeout with the cops so that they could just get their drink on and find a lady or whatever.
Well, and in that scene, and we'll kind of briefly like cover the plot, but Kris Kristofferson has to get moving. He has to get a moseying.
Yeah.
And he looks over to Ali MacGraw and he says something like, all right, well, I want you to take care of things here. And I thought to myself, what are the things that she needs to take care of exactly? Like, what are you doing there?
Right.
And I think that that's like a pretty common sentiment for a lot of the stretches of this film.
Yeah.
I don't know. Should we just try to like very straightforwardly address the plot?
Absolutely. Do you want to take a stab at it?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
A maverick of sorts.
Yes, absolutely.
Finds himself afoul of the law along with his trucker buddies when they cross paths with Dirty Lyle, a dirty cop somewhere in New Mexico who really has it out for Rubber Duck, the nom de plume for Kris Kristofferson in this film. I think at some point we actually get his real name.
His real name is Martin Penwall.
That's right. And when Dirty Lyle tries to make trouble for the truckers, the convoy as it were, things get a little bit violent, and the convoy has to go on the road. They have to go on the run. And they try to cross straight lines, and as they do, words of their travails carry across the CB waves, and other truckers and motorists decide to fall in step, and it becomes a proper convoy, but not just a convoy, really, Bill, a movement.
It becomes a movement for all kinds of things that are ailing Americans at the time.
And all the while, they've got the Smokies on their mud flaps.
Yeah.
And, beyond that, there's some superficial plot points. There's something having to do with a colleague being mutilated by the police in Texas.
Because he's black and they're in, I think it's New Mexico, isn't it?
Oh, well, I think that
Is he in Texas when it happened?
And tortured in Texas.
In Texas? Okay.
Yeah. Which, by the way, there's a plot hole there that is mind-blowing, but we'll get there, I guess. But
there's a big one that happens even before they take off, even before the bar fight.
Yeah.
So the character played by Cassie Yates is Violet Wallace. She is the wife of Sheriff Lyle Cottonmouth Wallace, played by Ernest Borgnine.
You're burying the lead here, though, because we're introduced to Violet, and this is why this is such a mind-blowing revelation, folks, if you haven't seen this film, which if you listen to Bill's preamble, hopefully you have. Violet is a waitress at a truck stop, I suppose.
Yeah.
A kind of a cool one, too.
Yeah.
And Kris Kristofferson and she obviously have
a relationship.
Kind of
yeah.
And he asks her when she's going to get off her ass and dump this low-life husband of hers.
Yeah.
She says, I'll get around to it. And then they never address it again. And at some point, Dirty Lyle shows up and creates trouble in the restaurant. But it's never explained.
So it was never, I didn't miss it or something, right?
No.
I'm just like, wait, so Violet is the wife of the sheriff, because the sheriff is angry at our Rubber Duck the whole time.
Which is a piece of backstory you could easily fit in there, and it would have helped things make so much more sense.
So much more sense. Like, why is Borgnine so angry at Kristofferson the whole movie? Like with like a deep, deep hatred.
Right. Because the first time we encounter them, it's the convoy, which initially just consists of Burt Young and is it Franklyn Ajaye? Is that how you pronounce Spider Mike's actual name?
Let's try that.
Or Ajaye? So that's the original convoy. It's those three.
Or
folks.
AJ.
Oh yeah, okay. Look at you. Check out the break brain, right? But so it's Polly, Spider Mike, and Kris Kristofferson. By the way, Pigpen also has a different handle.
Did you just call him Polly?
Yeah.
I love it.
Happy birthday, Polly.
So he's referring to Burt Young,
yes,
who plays Bobby Love Machine Pigpen.
Love Machine. So he's got two CB names.
Hold on, you don't want to go too fast for our audience. Polly is his name in Rocky.
Yes, of
which
course.
is what I know him from too. I'm like, oh, that's Polly. So totally with you.
Well, and that is like, okay, and so immediately that kind of turned me off to these guys because they're so stuck in this weird affectation that, at some point, like the FBI, or rather the bear in the air, is following the convoy around. This is later in the film.
Right, it is.
And the FBI agent is trying to communicate with Kris Kristofferson, and he calls him by his name.
Yeah.
And Kristofferson refuses to answer unless like they go through this ritual essentially of CB speak.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment that I was like, yeah, these are like I bet these are like, these guys grew up to be do my own research kind of guys. You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
It's a little bit childish, but pretty funny. And
it is funny.
And so then Sheriff Lyle Wallace, Ernest Borgnine character, gets on the mic and he's like, what does he say? Breaker, boopity boopity boop.
Yeah,
come on.
The CB magic words.
He uses the secret handshake,
right?
And that's when Kris Kristofferson's Rubber Duck finally actually replies,
right?
Which is pretty funny. And the Rubber Duck has a hood ornament on the front.
Yeah, it's kind of a bitchin' little hood ornament. Actually,
it's a nice little hood ornament.
Cool.
He takes his name very seriously, apparently. I don't know.
But the first time you meet Sheriff Lyle.
Yeah.
You think he's just mad.
He's just mad.
Because the convoy is going too fast.
Because they're having good times. It's like, I think the implication is that Wallace used to be a trucker. And he's known Kristofferson, Rubber Duck, ever since then. And now he's just a bitter cop. And he gets to pull truckers over.
Right.
And it's just, you're like, okay, I guess that's a motivation. I don't know.
I guess before we get too far, I guess I would put this question to you. Because I don't think that this movie's trying to do anything profound. But would you say that this is like an anti-institution movie?
Oh, 100%.
Is that too obvious? Is that it should just be a rhetorical question?
It is 100% anti-institution, yes, And you'll hear about it, they literally there's a news crew following the convoy and they go from truck to truck asking them about, well, what's your problem, brother? And each one of them has their own gripe, well, it's the unions, blah, 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 it's this, it's that.
Along those lines, when we first meet Dirty Lyle and Kris Kristofferson kind of, I guess he's kind of shaking the convoy down for money. But they both make this big to-do about being what they describe as independent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
And I felt like that, like, you know, as I was grasping for themes, I was like, I guess that's the one. You know?
Yeah, I mean, Rubber Duck is so independent, he's not even in the union. So he's his own guy.
Right.
He's his own man. And when actually one of my favorite lines in the whole movie is we haven't even mentioned some of the other actors in here, like Ali MacGraw,
right,
famous for Love Story.
I think there's a good reason why we haven't mentioned her yet, but we can get to that.
Oh, you don't like Ali?
I love Ali MacGraw.
Oh, okay.
I think she's terrible in this film. Absolutely terrible. Now, maybe she doesn't have much to do or doesn't know what movie she's
allegedly
in.
She was on some substances at different times during the movie. So, but it also apparently convinced her to quit.
She also, in this film, can't close her mouth and looks a little bit like Johnny Mathis to me. And it's hard.
Her hairdo is really
a hard look.
The curly thing that she has going on in others, much like it's not as bad as Mara Winningham's haircut in Miracle Mile, but it's up there. It's pretty.
That's a top 3 of all time.
That's pretty bad.
But we also, it's like, you know, the first scene that we're introduced to her is literally the first scene of the film, and we're treated to a shot of her kind of doing a spread eagle thing in the car. And it's like, you know, you see that and she needs a sandwich and it's just like, come on, you know, I don't know. The whole thing is just not working for me this time with Ali.
That's fine.
And I like her.
I actually didn't mind that. It was the hairdo that was bothering me.
No, it's bad. It's bad.
But okay, wait. So a couple things we should mention about these characters. Well, first of all, let's talk about this cast that we've already been talking about.
Yeah.
Kristofferson's worked with him on Pat Garrett, Billy the Kid, a movie you and I both enjoy very much.
Yeah.
Ernest Borgnine worked with him on The Wild Bunch, obviously. And those are, I think, some important films and connections to make, because these are 2 of the best films that Peckinpah ever made. And so he brings them back together here, you know, from different films, pulls them into Convoy, which is going to be what you earlier described accurately as his attempt to make something commercial and to get out of director jail, essentially. Which he kind of did and kind of didn't at the same time, because he's such a rebel, much like Rubber Duck, that he's going to make a lot of money, which Convoy did, tons of money, but he's also going to do it in a way that all the studios are angry at him because he was popped up on different substances and over budget and going beyond the schedule. But do we want to talk about Kristofferson's at all, just as a man, as a person, as an actor?
I enjoy him. He's got a very deep gravity. He's got a true charisma.
He does. His gravitas is high. He's high on the gravitas meter.
Yeah.
And he just passed away.
Yes.
He was in a lot of great films. I mean, you know, some unusual ones too. Scorsese's Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. Mm-hmm. He was in Cimino's Heaven's Gate, which notoriously sank United Artists and changed the way Hollywood treats directors after the boon to directors in the 70s and late 60s.
Yeah. He was a decent little songsmith as well. The Silver Tongue Devil.
Yeah. No, I think some of his songs are really fun. What is it? Sunday Morning Coming Down?
Yeah.
And didn't he write Bobby McGee?
Oh, that would be news to me, but okay.
I think he wrote that. Obviously, it became more popular when Janis Joplin covered it, but yeah, I think that was his song.
There you go.
Obviously, in Pat Garrett, the Billy the Kid, like we talked about, he's in John Sayles' Lone Star, which I like a lot. And he was in a version of Star is Born with...
That's right.
With Barbra Streisand. And of course, he's in Blade with Wesley Snipes. I mean, that's a varied career. I mean, this guy has worked with everybody from Scorsese to Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
So pretty cool, storied career and multifaceted talent here.
Yeah, he will be missed for sure.
He was also a Rhodes Scholar. Do you know that?
I did. And well, we have to, okay. So before we go too much further, I do feel like this is a good time to stop down and tell a story. And it's already been covered by other podcasts, but it's just too good not to pass up here. So it comes from a Rolling Stone interview that they did with Ethan Hawke in 2009. And he has this anecdote about being at a Willie Nelson birthday celebration. I think it was his 70th birthday. So this is 2003.
Okay.
And in this story, basically, Toby Keith, who is just known for his absolute atrocities on ear holes, especially around 9/11, it was doing all this pro-Iraq war stuff and whatever. We won't go down that track. But Toby Keith, wishes Willie Nelson a happy birthday, and then he's going on stage to perform. And before he goes on stage, he passes up Kris Kristofferson, who he leans into him and he says, "Hey, none of that lefty shit out there tonight, all right, Chris?" And Kris Kristofferson corners him. He said, "What'd you just say to me?" And Willie Nelson goes, "Oh no." And he goes, "Don't get Chris all riled up." And Toby Keith goes, "Oh, you heard me." Starts walking away. Kristofferson goes, "Don't you turn your back on me, boy." Not giving a shit that like all these people are like just staring at and watching this go down. And then, Toby Keith turns around and he goes, "I don't want any problems, Chris. I just want you to tone it down." Kris Kristofferson says, "You ever worn a country uniform?" "Huh? Don't what, me boy? You heard the question. You just don't like the answer. I asked, have you ever served this country? The answer is no, you have not. Have you ever killed another man, huh? Have you ever taken another man's life and then cashed the check your country gave you for doing it? No, you have not, so shut the fuck up."
Wow.
I love it so much.
That's good.
I would just love to have been there for that. And I really hope it's real.
I believe it.
Wasn't. Yeah.
I believe it. Wow.
Well, that's actually not the end of the story. So Toby Keith, whatever, kind of mutters and walks off. Kris Kristofferson turns to the room and says, "You know what Waylon Jennings said about guys like him?" He whispered, "They're doing to country music what pantyhose did to finger fucking." That's the end of the story. Okay. That's the Kris Kristofferson I know and love.
That's amazing. Good stuff.
Okay. Well, but back to Convoy. Sorry. That was a bit of diversion. We can edit it or not. We'll see.
No, that's fine. I like it. Let's keep it in. All right. So Cassie Yates plays Violet Wallace. I'm just going to go through the cast a little bit. There's some interesting actors here. Madge Sinclair as Widow Woman. I wish she had a bigger role. She's the dark-skinned woman whose truck gets turned over, and then she winds up being a passenger in this other truck.
Yeah.
Franklyn Ajaye or Ajaye or however you pronounce it, Spider Mike.
Yeah.
Brian Davies, Chuck Arnoldi. And then Seymour Cassel plays a governor, Jerry Haskins.
Love him to death.
I believe he's like isn't he the governor of New Mexico?
Yes. In this, he is the governor of New Mexico.
Which is hilarious. If you see him in like any Cassavetes movie and then you watch him as the governor of New Mexico, I think Cassavetes would have enjoyed that. I mean, he was still alive, so he probably did enjoy it.
Right now. So what do you do with Cassavetes did Faces, right? And he was nominated for that.
He did
role.
Faces. He did Minnie and Moskowitz. He's very briefly in Shadows.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's in a few of those.
Well, going back to Madge Sinclair and Franklyn Ajaye, I'm pretty sure that they were written in by Peckinpah.
Oh, cool.
I don't think they're in the original script, and it's it's kind of nice to see when Peckinpah gets to kind of put some of his values on screen.
Absolutely, yeah. He wanted to see more color up there, and which wouldn't have been there otherwise, except for him. So good for him.
Yeah.
Walter Kelly is the federal agent Hamilton. Billy Hughes is Pack Rat. George Rusick is Texas Alvarez Sheriff Tiny Alvarez. I think that's the guy who beats up the AJ character, Spider Mike. And then Patrice Martinez Maria. Donnie Fritz is Reverend Sloan, which was a funny character, the guy running around in the van with, the guys on that bus are apparently Kris Kristofferson's band.
Okay.
From his musical
Did
side.
not know that.
Tommy Bush as Chief Stacy Love, and Spec O'Donnell as 18-Wheel Eddie, and Bill Kuntz as Old Iguana. He's one of the guys I liked a lot. He was the guy who was like very kind of Gappy Hayes looking, like very older American. No offense to him. I mean, he just has a wonderful face.
No, he's got a very memorable mug.
Yeah, and he kind of chimes in a bit more later in the film, because at first you just see him smiling a lot. Yeah. So who knows? In the long cut, he might have had more lines. But
at some point, actually, a good chunk of the first third of this film, I say, would take place at this kind of this roadhouse or this truck stop, essentially.
Yeah.
And it seems like in that setup, they're kind of cutting to all these faces, which Peckinpah likes to do that. And, I think that I heard a story that Don Siegel recruited him to work on, is it Riot on Cell Block 11?
Oh, right. Yes. I don't have the exact name in my head, but yes, I think that might be right.
But I think Don Siegel, part of the way that Peckinpah cut his teeth was doing second unit stuff.
Okay.
And he did second unit stuff on that.
Yeah.
And that's a film that, not unlike a lot of other Peckinpah films, uses a lot of actual, inmates in this case. But it seems like Peckinpah likes to use everyday people.
And real faces.
Yeah. And it seemed like like this truck stop setup had a lot of that going on.
Yeah. It feels, for instance, who we were just talking about, Bill Kuntz feels very much like a real face, you know?
He seems like a guy you would have just plucked right out of a real diner.
100%. And so, we start off in this truck stop after the whole, meet cute with our main characters. There's a whole scene where they get stopped, right? They get stopped by the sheriff.
That's right.
They have this past, although we don't learn that he's actually the husband of the waitress who...
Which is just baffling.
Yeah. And it's also Rubber Duck's birthday. So what's wrong with giving a guy a little gift for his birthday? I think the sheriff needs to lighten up a little bit.
Seriously.
So they get to this bar. There's this giant fight. I mean, apparently it took them days and days to shoot this fight.
Yeah, well, so this fight is bonkers. It's and look, it's a staple of Peckinpah's work. He loves the slow motion stuff, and it usually works for him. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's working in Old Convoy. Really?
Oh, I liked it.
Listen, there are moments, there are shots that I appreciate, but man, this fight goes on for a good 10 minutes.
It's a long fight.
Yeah.
And it's elaborate. I mean, there's just, you see this person punch that person, punch this person, fall over that person. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. I mean,
and the whole restaurant gets involved. I mean, it's like it's clearly a truckers versus cops situation. It's not just like a couple guys getting involved. I mean, everybody's, even the kids at one point are kind of getting a little uppity,
And it keeps going on until finally they leave Ernest Borgnine handcuffed to a bar stool, which was his idea, which I thought was pretty cool.
Okay.
And they take off, and then finally his wife comes back in. She was going to have sex with Rubber Duck, and Rubber Duck has to leave. He's very sorry that he didn't get to enjoy that, and she is as well. And then she just very kind of melancholically lifts the top of the bar stool off and makes her husband look like even more of an idiot.
Can we talk about this fight just a second longer, though?
Yeah.
There is so much destruction in this bar.
Yes, it's great.
It is great. But the bar, or this restaurant rather, there's all of this defenestration happening, and people flying through glass and shit.
Yeah.
There's all of these I don't know if our younger audience will remember a time when you could go into a good old-fashioned diner and there'd be all these pie displays all over the place, This must be the most pie displayed restaurant of all time, because there's just 30 different shots of people getting thrown through furniture and walls and things like this, and it's man,
it's great.
All of these people should be dead.
I just enjoyed it. I don't know.
I enjoyed it as well, but it was baffling. I mean, I'm not hating on it. It sounds like I am, but it's just a spectacle.
You're still reeling. You're not used to this level of destruction from a fist fight.
It's pretty mind blowing.
They basically destroy the bar.
Yeah,
in a fist fight.
Yeah, I mean that, and we could dedicate an entire podcast to that scene alone. So I will digress, but
yep,
it's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah.
The devil's dirty lie.
Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
The Projection Booth is single-handedly the greatest film podcast you could ever listen to or could possibly want.
Top notch. 5 stars. This has quickly become one of my favorite film-related podcasts. Always interesting.
A completely unpretentious yet fully comprehensive look at films from all genres.
The Projection Booth podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.
Well, all right. So what do you want to talk about? I mean, I kind of want to talk about the cinematography and point out something that annoyed me only after I had seen the film. And that is that Convoy, I watched it on Tubi.
Yes.
And while I thank Tubi for showing it to me for free with ads, I have a problem that there were 3 different versions of Convoy, and I didn't check them ahead of time, and I should have, because the one that I watched was formatted to fit 16:9. The other 2 were widescreen, and I was like, I grabbed, and I am a stickler for widescreen. I mean, I love a good 2:3:5 to 1 frame, and that's what this movie is.
Apparently, there's a DVD transfer that just absolutely ruined everything for everybody, and a lot of the streaming services just pull from those old transfers. Yes, no, I was lucky enough to see the 235 in all its glory. And, it's kind of a muddy film. It's
well, they need to clean it up probably.
Yeah,
from the transfers.
But it looked good in the version that I saw. It was the Blu-ray. It was a Blu-ray rip essentially. But
yeah. Well, I mean, it's I think it's a beautiful film. I mean, I like the look of it. I think they did a nice job just conveying sort of, I mean, obviously taking a 235 frame to a road movie makes a lot of sense. Horizontal, right? So that's what they did, and it works out. And it feels very much when you're watching these sort of long distance establishing shots at the very beginning, like you're watching a Western. That's essentially what Peckinpah is doing. He's making a Western with trucks, and the truck drivers are cowboys. It's very plain to see, I think, after a while.
There are moments of beauty in this movie that are surprising. Mm-hmm. So at one point they are on the run from the very first third of this film, and there's all these different contrivances that they have to employ to kind of get away. At one point, Ernest Borgnine does a Dukes of Hazzard stunt through, a billboard, essentially.
That's a pretty amazing stunt.
Pretty good. And actually, you alluded to a shot where a truck kind of like jackknifes. Apparently, it wasn't in script.
Oh, right. You're talking about, yes, when I think she's also known as like...
Widow Woman.
Black Widow or Widow Woman.
Yeah, Madge Sinclair's character.
Yeah, Widow Woman. Yes, her truck jackknifes, turns over, or at least turns over, and everything falls off. It's basically the trailer falls first and takes the cab over with it.
Right. Jackknife might not be the right description, but it does. It just kind of teeters over.
And it wasn't planned, and he just put it in the movie.
Yeah,
he just left it in, and it doesn't make a lot of sense because you're like, but isn't that truck worth like hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever it was back then?
They even try to ride around it by her going like, I shouldn't have bought a white truck.
Yeah. Should have gotten a black truck.
Yeah, and I kind of like.
And then I guess the insurance is going to pay for it. Because I mean, they're all running from the law. So who knows if she's going to, I mean, who would do that? Who would just leave their truck anyway?
Well, and Ali MacGraw's along for the ride because her car is messed up, and she decides that she wants to take a little ride.
Right.
It's Kris Kristofferson. Why? We don't know. They certainly don't have any chemistry together.
They don't seem to have a lot of chemistry. Yeah. And not only that, he's trying to have sex with a waitress in front of her, like not right there, but like he's basically, it's very clear that they're going to go have sex together. And then she just cozies up to him right after that. So
by the way, the idea that Kris Kristofferson and Ernest Borgnine are Eskimo brothers is just reprehensible to me. I'm sorry. Ernest Borgnine, I love Ernest Borgnine.
I adore.
I love him so much.
Yeah. You don't think he could get Cassie Yates?
No, I think he absolutely could. It's just he's so sweaty and gross. At least in this film,
they just made him look that way.
No, I know. But they're doing a good job of it. And it's like the camera is like strategically placed like up his nose the entire time. It's very. I mean, obviously they're doing their best to make him as grotesque as possible, but
he's not.
They achieve.
He's good at playing a baddie, which is fun because he plays such a likable character in The Wild Bunch.
Yes. Really quickly, Ernest Borgnine, best known for Merlin's Mystical Shop of Wonders.
Yes, of course.
Okay, just making clear. Sorry.
So going back to the cinematography, Harry Stradling Jr. shot this.
Yes,
he's the son of Harry Stradling Sr.
Yes.
And both of them were cinematographers.
Okay.
So Harry Stradling, I don't know if you're a fan at all, but he shot some pretty cool movies. Little Big Man. You might know Dirty Dingus McGee, I'm guessing.
Mm.
And he also shot 1776, McHugh, Rooster Cogburn.
Mm.
So some fun movies.
Yeah.
And Damnation Alley. So he had quite a varied career, a Hollywood career, and ended up, his last film was Caddyshack 2, 1988.
Well, I regret to admit that I didn't know him by name, but I'm a fan of his work.
He's a Hollywood legacy. His father was a big DP as well, so that's kind of fun to note. Old-time Hollywood people. Well,
and you were, we were talking about that sequence where they're escaping. This movie was surprising in where it chooses moments to employ visual flourish, but there's this really interesting sequence where the convoy is trying to, this is when they haven't even made it across state lines yet, and they're trying to escape through this, I guess, what would you call it, like a dust field or just the desert essentially, but
Oh, right, when they're just going all of those like mounds of dirt.
And that's a very protracted sequence.
Yeah.
It goes on for good long
Well,
while.
and not only that, the cop cars just keep flying off the road. Like they can't keep their cars on the road. Meanwhile, these giant 18-wheelers are just navigating like there's no trouble. And these cops cannot drive their cars.
Yeah, it's a strange sequence, but it's also like they've found this way to make the dust really beautiful. And like part of what makes this sequence so long is they decided to do this thing where they're just really like juicing the visuals of like this dust, and like they're even doing this kind of this superimposition of like flowing plumes of dust, and it's like really goes on for a long time. But it's like moments like that where you're like, oh well, they didn't have to do this, but they really stretched to make that a beautiful sequence. And,
it feels like, absolutely. I mean, Peckinpah feels like he understands some of the poetry of cinema. I mean, obviously he's known as being quite a great director, and I'm not going to say he's quite as facile with it as Kurosawa, who was a master of exactly that. But I mean, there are poetic moments of beauty in this movie.
He's got a kineticism to his style. He's not perfectly blocking every frame like Antonioni or whatever, but he does have a sense of movement that's really
100%
unique to him. And and a lot of it is punctuated by the slow-mo that is made so much to do of.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, I think at a certain point it becomes a ball and chain, and I think that might be what you might be alluding to. Like you feel like it didn't fit in this quite as much as it did in maybe in like a Wild Bunch.
Yeah, I mean, towards the end of this film, there are slow motion shots that just don't, they're over cranking on shots that don't make any sense, or at least it doesn't. I can't decipher the method behind the madness, but
he might have been overusing it at times. And that is funny how you become known for something and then people expect it, and if you don't do it, then they might.
Right. I mean, it's like you can't even talk about like like a Zack Snyder without thinking of like speed ramping or something like this, or you can't think about Janusz Kaminski without thinking of lens flares.
Yeah, backlighting.
So maybe Peckinpah's leaning into that. I don't know.
It could be that he was trapped by his own style. Who knows? And it's interesting to say that he's using different editors and yet employing the same kind of speed changes that he did with between the different editors. Well, what do you want to talk about next? I mean, we talked a little bit about the writing. We talked about the cast. We talked about the cinematography.
I think this would be a good time to go into verse number 2. New Mexico on I-40, like a Texas lizard on glass. 1,000 pedals was mashing the metal. Them bears was a walk in the grass. We trucked all day, we trucked all night. Big Benny improving our style. We could tell by the smell. We was heading for hell. And the devil was Dirty Lyle. Thank you. Yeah.
Wait, so Big Benny, that's Benny's, right? They're taking Benny's in order to stay away?
I have to assume.
Yeah, he's improving their style.
And, well, so same with, they mentioned glass. Like, isn't that just crystal meth?
Oh, I didn't catch that.
I don't know. That's my guess. Yeah, I guess I would go, I would say like...
They don't talk about uppers in this movie, though. As far as I remember. Did they ever talk about uppers?
No, they don't.
That's such a big like cliche with truckers.
They're really trying to make these guys seem like they're these, you already pointed to it, but they're cowboys.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just not righteous enough for a cowboy.
Yeah, that's true. If they're relying on substances, then how independent can they be?
I guess what I would want to talk about is the interesting attempt that this movie is making at like some kind of anti-institutional stance. Yeah, like you alluded to it earlier, but there's this scene where I guess it's the governor's lieutenant or something, or his assistant or something, is kind of like strafing these trucks, and he's riding alongside and kind of like interviewing all the different players. And as you alluded, they all have these different.
Oh, I think he's just like a news guy. He's just okay. Yeah.
I thought that he actually worked for the governor, but
I don't think so. No,
but
could be wrong
because we see him a few times. But anyway. And they all, as you allude to, they all have different reasons. Some people just want to show their ass. But the movie seems like it's trying to do something at this point.
Yeah.
And I can't put my finger on what it is. And
it's backloaded. I mean, it's not, they don't set it up.
Do you think that the movie even knows what it's trying to do at that point? Or do you think that this is stuff that fell by the wayside when the 3-hour
exactly
cut went away?
It's hard to say because of what you just said. Like, we don't know what's missing. So It could be that maybe there was much more of this stuff earlier in the film and that set it up and made it, resonate more when it comes up when they're doing the interviews. But because there isn't that stuff, all we really have is this kind of good time old boy thing where they're running from the cops. They're their own people and they're not going to take no guff.
Right.
And then all of these serious issues are presented when they're in the convoy and they're the news people are interviewing them.
Yeah, because the convoy becomes like this movement, like people just kind of via the CV ways are just getting wind of this movement that's happening, and it's just Rubber Duck, and we've heard about you, and we just want to ride with you. It's all these different stripes. It's the Jesus freaks like you were mentioning, and at one point there's like a water truck that's like spraying the cops as they're like kind of following slowly behind.
I don't think they were part of it, but they could have been. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. But it starts with like 5 or 6 trucks and it becomes hundreds.
Hundreds, yeah, just literally a giant caravan.
And it's at this point like that they introduce the governor, and it really does feel to me, and maybe I'm wrong about this, how do you feel about it, that the governor is kind of like the central antagonist, even though that Dirty Lyle is like the thorn in their side.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it seems like the movie wants to pull one over on the governor. On the governor.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
On Seymour Cassel.
Exactly. No, I think you've hit it on the head, because I think that even the Ernest Borgnine character, Dirty Lyle, he is laughing at the end when he finds out that Rubber Duck is still alive.
Right.
So he was actually sad when he thought he was dead. So there's like this weird like love-hate thing going on between them. Like he wants to hurt him, but he doesn't want to kill him. And so the actual ultimate antagonist, I think you might be right, is the Seymour Cassel character playing the governor, who just wants to use the movement in order to get reelected, in order to get whatever he wants done, in order to get whatever popularity he can get from it. In other words, the enemy is the co-opting of the cowboy way.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And if they had just set it up, if they had just had like the governor character come in earlier or something and set it up, they could have had a really interesting story that way.
They just needed him. You're right. They needed him to be 20% more evil.
20% more evil, but also earlier in the film too.
Yes.
Like he just kind of shows up like, I don't know, 40, maybe an hour into the film. And you're just like, okay, I guess we're dealing with Seymour Cassel. And the other thing is, yeah, I think you're right. He needed to be more evil because Seymour Cassel is just so inherently charismatic and likable that you have to make him work to be unlikable.
Yeah. No, he's too avuncular to be mad at.
Yeah, so he kind of comes across as a genuine politician at first, and then you realize, okay, he's just trying to co-opt the thing. He doesn't care about them. So yeah, he needed to be more evil. He needed to come in earlier, and then the film really probably would have hummed a little better, would have moved along a little better.
That would have made it hum better, and it would have also hummed a little better if we had some sense of why the convoy became a movement. Because, we get these interviews with the reporter or the governor's assistant or whoever he is.
Yeah.
And like that kind of clues us into a few themes, but it doesn't explain like why there's literally like a marching band waiting for them at a thing. It's like, it's not like Vanishing Point where like there's literally like somebody just following along like one guy's mission, which by the way, this evoked a Vanishing Point for me at certain moments. But
that's not a bad, I didn't think of that. Yeah. We should actually talk about that film.
I love that film.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of a movie that's like doing some same things thematically. If we had just had like a scene where the truckers, or even like, if they'd only just done like like a telephone montage or literally a CV montage. Hey, you heard about the movement that's going down? Oh yeah, Rubber Duck is a fucking man. Yeah. Oh yeah, well, these gas prices are killing us. Oh yeah. I mean, maybe they don't want to be that on the nose, fine. But you find some way of setting that up. You set up the movement, you set up exploiting said movement.
Yeah.
You have something more to chew on.
Yeah, and maybe some more of what you were talking about, like tying in the whole, these guys keep getting pulled over, but they need to be going from stop to stop by a certain amount of time or else they get docked pay or whatever. Right. And so they have to move a certain speed, but they can't because gas prices, because the laws were changed, because yada, yada, yada. And then you go to like, okay, well, why is oil high? What's going on in the Middle East? All of these things are tied together. Yeah. It is interesting. So why not actually make it a substantial part of the film instead of making it an afterthought?
Because we got to burn 30 minutes of Ali MacGraw sitting in a truck cab looking confused.
Right. With a crazy haircut.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I do wonder, like, do you think the longer cut had more of this stuff and that's what they cut out?
I'm assuming it had to. I'm assuming it also had to flesh out that relationship with Ali MacGraw a little bit.
Right.
But what's interesting to me is like they do try to kind of point towards this like solidarity that they have. and like this like leave no man behind kind of deal, even though like it's very clear that like they're not affiliated with each other in any way.
Right.
I was alluding to a kind of glaring plot hole, which Spider Duck, is it Spider Duck? Spider Monkey? Spider, Angry Spider.
Let's go with Angry Spider.
What the hell is this?
Spider Mike.
Spider Mike.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, is like being picked on the whole goddamn movie, and
he is.
Frankly, you know,
it's kind of annoying.
Borgnine throws enough boy around to like, you know, make you really find him to be pretty reprehensible.
Yeah.
But they do this thing where at some point Spider Mike has to separate from the convoy.
Yeah. It's because his wife's having a baby.
Yeah, and he's going home to Texas.
Yeah.
Well, Kris Kristofferson has this line, and it's very, you know, it's a very foreshadowy line. Where it's like, you know, well, that's a bad kind of country to be rolling around by herself as a black man or whatever. But
yeah.
But he lives there. So doesn't he just deal with this all the time? I mean,
yeah.
It's just like there's a lot of clunky shit like that. I don't know if that was like it's just impossible to know what we could have had and what we're missing.
Well, maybe this is going to be one of those Peckinpah films where we get the director's cut, you know, in 10 years or something. And they're like, oh, Convoy's a masterpiece. You know?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if it'll be a masterpiece. But I don't know. I enjoyed the film very much. It does have a lighter tone than other Peckinpah films, and it is sillier. And at times there is humor in it that's a bit childish, kind of like boomer humor that I'm not the biggest fan of.
Yeah.
Where goofy things happen, and it's just like wah, wah, and you're thinking, really? That's it?
Yeah. No, there's actually more of that than I would have liked as well. There's like the old couple in the model Ford, which you're like, what is this gonna? Certainly this will come back, you know.
And it keeps coming back. And then at the very end of the movie, they make out the old couple.
Yeah, I mean, it was like that. And then like there's like the owner of the restaurant watching the fight going down, like, oh, it's a living, or, you know, whatever it says, you know, like whatever Flintstones appliance lines he has, you know, and that stuff's not great.
Right.
And, you know, I think the 70s just didn't do that very well.
A lot of the time. And part of it's that they're trying to figure out the tone, you know, he's trying to do a serious film about individualism and maybe about certain issues. And then he's also trying to make this fun movie that's just a quick romp and that can make a lot of money because nobody's offended by anything. And the mix is kind of confusing at times.
It's an atonal film. It definitely doesn't settle on one. There are moments of heaviness, but they never really stick.
I really want to see the extra footage because this movie was supposed to cost around $6 million. Wound up costing around $12 million.
Yeesh. That'll make you an albatross in the town.
Put some attention on you.
Hollywood, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard different numbers, but one of the numbers is that they were 11 days behind schedule, which for Hollywood excess isn't terrible, but hopefully, you know, it benefited from those days over.
Well, so I heard an interesting theory or proposition about this movie, which I don't know how I feel about it, but somebody said that there was kind of like a Christ arc in it, where like there's a. Have you heard this theory?
I have not heard it, but do you have any more to say about that?
Well, it's just the like there's a death and a resurrection, and then like a kind of a attending to your flock, as it were. I mean, visually, like they're literally doing that at the end.
There's definitely a lot of this kind of reluctant hero thing going on. And at one point, Ali MacGraw's character, whose name is Melissa, she says, you know, they're all following you. And he says, no, they ain't. I'm just in front.
Right. Which is an interesting line.
It is an interesting line. It's kind of great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also speaks to, it kind of feels like the film itself, which is that it has ideas of being high-minded and of having other points, but it doesn't ever really solidify any of it.
No.
And, you know, that's okay. I guess for me, it just wound up being like, I think the film would have been so much better and had so much more resonance if it had tackled some of those things, or even one of those ideas.
I guess you could read a lot into this being a movie that's about America's rugged individualism that's finally taken shape in the 1970s. We're breaking out of years of, whatever. I mean, there's a lot that you could say about like what it's supposed to mean. At the end of the day, you're right. It just doesn't land any of those ideas.
This is a reoccurring theme with Peckinpah, right? The end of an era, the end of that rugged individualism. You're talking about seemingly being reluctantly pulled into a society where people aren't allowed to be their own free Americans or whatever.
Sure.
And he's brought that into Convoy, which is fine, but it doesn't work quite as well as it does in some of his other movies.
Right.
45 million. Did we mention that?
We did. And good for him.
Good for
He
him.
deserved a W.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is a movie that makes you want to kind of slip into a trucker's patois,
Breaker. Why would it do that? Why would you say that?
That's all. Oh.
Why?
What?
It inspired you?
Now let's not go that far. Oh, here we go. Listen to it.
I mean, it's as though just listening to the voices of these CB truckers is some kind of music.
Yeah, it's almost like I don't know, there's like a lyrical quality to it, certainly.
Certainly.
Do you really not hear any kind of like disco in this? Like, I feel like when we get to the chorus, you definitely...
Maybe you're hearing it in the production and I'm not hearing it.
Maybe.
I mean, he definitely sounds like he's evoking the Man in Black himself.
Yeah, maybe.
I think he's definitely inspired by some Cash there, but the song's okay. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm shocked that it's in the top 100 for Rolling Stone. That's an interesting
It just
fact.
feels like they put a lot of ingredients into a blender and kind of birthed this thing out. And
Yeah.
like it's a homunculus of a song. It's not like it's just this kind of a mishmash of ideas.
Yeah, a bunch of parts that never quite gel, maybe.
Do you think that this movie has any like cultural staying power? Like, do you think people are talking about this movie?
The stunt work in this is pretty phenomenal at times.
Yeah, even if it is occasionally accidental.
Yeah. Oh well. Do you think there were some accidents that happened? Oh, you talking about the truck turning over?
Well, apparently also there one of the slow squad car crashes was also not intentional.
I believe that for sure. But that stunt that you were talking about where Sheriff Lyle crashes through a billboard, it tears through a roof, and then eventually lands. I was watching an interview with a stunt person, and he said that I didn't break anything, but I separated a few things.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, that stunt is followed up by a moment that I feel like really encapsulates this movie really well, and it's like kind of chaotic energy because like, so he calls in for backup.
Yes. Oh, right. Yeah.
And this trooper appears.
Yeah.
Just like out of nowhere. And what does he say? Apropos of nothing.
Yeah. He says, which is a little clunky, but somehow it kind of works. He says, I'm Sheriff so-and-so or Deputy so-and-so, and I hate truckers.
Yeah. But he has no idea what just happened to Ernest Borgnine. This is just out of nowhere.
It is out of nowhere.
And it's a movie.
It's pretty funny.
I feel like that choice kind of approximates like so much of like what is going on in this movie. It's like, here are our themes. Our characters are just going to announce the show. No, we're not going to establish any of it. It's just going to be, and you're going to come along for the ride. And I can't be too mad at that, but I also could see how that would keep this from being like held as a classic,
Yeah, I feel like a subgenre this also tags along with is the kind of like, individual versus the cops specifically. Sure. So like, Blues Brothers or those kinds of films where you just have large swaths of squad cars crashing and getting just chewed up to bits.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun to watch in this film.
Yeah, I like a little bit of cop violence.
Totally. There's a line that I like in the film where, and this is kind of poetic, and this is probably Peckinpah. He says, "These lonely highways sure ground the souls of us cowpokes." Just thought that was pretty great.
Well, it's just so part of what is so confusing about what they're aiming for is it just seems like they're all kind of drifting, which is that's the cowboy way. They do kind of establish that these people have like lives and homes and families. So like, what are they? But
how do you do this movement and have families that you have to pay for and everything? Like, well,
and you can just like casually pick up and be like, well, we're just going to cross the state line, and magically they'll solve everything, except it doesn't. And so now we're going to Mexico. And it's like
exactly
like it's just.
I think even in the late 70s, they would have had the FBI would have been doing that, which they are in this film.
Yes.
And then when they cross the country lines, they just call the government of Mexico and probably going after them anyway.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they could extradite you.
So this is a total fantasy. Let's face it. This is a male fantasy for dudes who want to be independent,
right?
Who want to do what they want to do. They don't want any restrictions on their life. They're going to have a good time with their trucks.
And I'm okay with that, but I guess I wish it leaned into that fantasy element a little bit more.
So then, in order to lean into it, would they have had to have gotten rid of some of the political stuff that they were not really tackling very well either?
Yeah, like maybe not try to talk about this as like, maybe the big bad is just Dirty Lyle. You know?
Yeah.
Maybe you give lip service to like the institutions that are trying to drag us down, but
Right.
you don't literally have the governor rolling around trying to, you know, we're going to take you to Washington. And, you know, maybe some of that needs to be pared down or presented differently. Maybe that's how you lean into the fantasy. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. No,
because at the end, and I agree with you, there's like this sequence where they're trying to break out Spider Mike. And there's just this very fantastical sequence where trucks are just plowing through buildings in Texas, you know?
Yeah, when they go into the jail. Yeah.
And
it's crazy.
I was like, surely the man who makes the poultry for this town doesn't deserve this. But like, I mean, it is Texas, so they might have all had a hand in it. Who knows? But that feels very fantastical. And it's like, do more of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the film is set up to be a fantasy. And then you're right. Once they bring in these real elements, these real issues, then it kind of takes away from the fantasy element, and then the fantasy elements take away from the realistic elements or the more serious elements. And maybe some of that has to do with the editing of the, you know, behemoth that they had at the beginning. That was 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Will we ever know? Perhaps not. But I think what we could safely say is Convoy is a success. It had mixed, you know, reviews when it came out, which is understandable. And I think a lot of the criticism had to do with what we're talking about, that they were trying to be more critical of the country and not doing a great job at it. And they maybe should have just stuck to being a pure entertainment, or vice versa.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm never going to be mad at having to watch Kris Kristofferson be charismatic for, you know, an hour and 45.
Yeah.
I will say that's probably as much as I need from this movie. I don't know if I want a 3-hour version. I think I just want a recut.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, perhaps to have the movie go by more quickly would have helped the film, so that you're not thinking about it too hard when you're, when the crazy things are happening, like, you know, trying to pull somebody out of jail with a bunch of trucks, or there's that funny moment when they all line up. You remember that? When he's just sitting there by himself, Rubber Duck, and he's like kind of facing the jail, and then all the trucks that have come after him because he left in the middle of the night or whatever, and now they've come and they've ridden up next to him, and it's like, you know, we're all together. That's
a bizarre moment for sure. But there are these weird little logistical things that get in their way, which don't make any sense. Like, it's like literally the end of the film, Kristofferson and MacGraw are by themselves because one of the trucks like runs into an ice cream guy. You know, it's like, this is like the same convoy that's literally just ripped through buildings in Texas like 2 scenes prior, and now it's like, oh no, we gave a fender bender to a guy that actually does good for the community. Like, you know, it's like no, just keep going. You know, like, sorry that you ruined this man's gelato business.
Just make it chaos.
Yeah, I just, you know, cut around stuff like that, I guess. But, you know, I'm not as it has become a mantra of ours on the show, it's hard to make a movie.
It is hard to make a movie. The movie did well, though. Like we said, Peckinpah's career suffered a little, but he came back 5 years later. Yeah, I don't really have a lot more to say about it at the moment.
Well, I think there is one last thing to say about it.
Oh, here we go.
And so folks, I suppose we can just end on verse number 4.
Do it.
We will. Well, that big black Mac stopped dead in her tracks when the trailer blew high in the air. There was pieces of truck and some pieces of duck and junk and debris everywhere. Then the rig took a drinkin' and commenced to sink, and there was no duck no more. But that evil smile from dirty old Lyle shone south from the North Texas shore, 'cause we got a mighty convoy rockin' through the night. Yeah, we got a mighty convoy. Ain't she a beautiful sight? Come on and join our convoy. Ain't nothing gonna get in our way. We gonna roll this truckin' convoy across the USA. Convoy. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Peckinpah does make a cameo. He is on that truck with the interviewer.
Yeah.
He's got this little bandana on, and he's riding along there, and you could see him if you're looking.
Yeah. He didn't even have to stand for that scene.
This episode is sound engineered, edited, and mixed by Colin Dixon, recorded at Bill's Hollywood Dell in beautiful Hollywood, California. If you'd like to contact us with comments, suggestions, or high praise, email us at cosmicmotionshow@gmail.com or send us a voice message at speakpipe.com/cosmicmotion. Your email or audio may be featured on our show. Thanks for joining us for this episode, and we look forward to sharing more thoughts with you on the next one. Until then, keep learning, growing, and creating.
Breaker, good buddy.